Alrighty, hey guys. Now, sorry I took so long with this upload because I got my hands on Adobe Premiere Pro and it was giving me a few headaches with regards to getting files that were relatively small, and it's like there was a bunch of other problems showing up. Now, like, little disclaimer out of the way, I recently did a video where I covered the plasma sword, and like that was just during a Melee 3.0 changes video. You can find the playlist for that on my channel, and I'll link it in the description. Now, with the plasma sword, I found that I was like throughout that whole time I was comparing it to Dakra Prime, and in all honesty, why shouldn't I? Because the fact of the matter is, Dakra Prime is probably probably one of, if not the best single-handed sword in the game at this point. But when I was looking at the plasma sword after the changes, I was not really hoping for much, but only to be blown away, like literally moments later when I tested it. So this video is sort of pitting this is going to be pitting the Dakra Prime against the Plasma Sword in terms of a bunch. Sorry, my nose. How I'm gonna do this is that there's gonna be a scoring system in place where I will be not just comparing them damage-wise, but a bunch of other factors, with the categories being generalized into two forms. You've got the effectiveness of the weapon, which has a minimum standard of if they can handle swordy level enemies with relative ease. So if it handles that in terms of damage, then it's pretty much got that set up in terms of that aspect, with another being with the other just like bonus points in that regard if the builds are fairly cheap to handle, or if you it's like another one of the main build aspects is if a Riven is truly needed to bring it up to high tier. If it does need a Riven, then it loses points in that regard. The second category being ease of access, or accessibility in general. So it's like it would lose points if the harder a weapon is to get a hold of, the less points it would get. And this is I've done this so many times, but I keep stuttering. It's like the reason I had to do it so many times is because the footage from the last recordings got corrupted, or just didn't work properly. So I'm re-recording this for the sake of editing. So the other bits I'm happy with. So anyways, back to solution. When it comes to accessibility, I'm gonna focus on a few things. For example, a weapon's mastery lock. That is a big turn off in terms. It's the higher the mastery lock, that just basically means you're not gonna get it until way later on. So a weapon will get more points the lower its mastery rank. Another one would be if, for example, if I was to compare a couple of primes, would be in the event a weapon's vaulted, or if its parts are mostly rare drops, like for example the Nakana Prime. So there would be points done that way. In terms of actually getting scores, both weapons I'm putting against each other in this video and any videos to come of this type will they'll both be getting points regardless, but it's what would set it apart, each weapon apart in different categories, is that for everything, so if each weapon were tied in certain aspects, they would get 2 points, but if one were to lose, they'd only get 1 point. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the first aspect, which I'm pretty sure won't be of much surprise to anyone. Alright, so here we are back in the simulacrum once again. This is phase 1 of the test, so there's going to be overall effectiveness. Now, for the sake of this, let's just quickly bring up the Dakra Prime so we can compare stats. Now, attack speed is probably the most turn-off stat for the Plasma Sword because it has a low attack speed of 0.667, meaning if you want it to be roughly at the same attack speed as the Dakra Prime at base, you're going to need something like a Fury with Berserker if you're talking build-wise. So, but it depends on that, so... But you can have other things such as Valkyr's Warcry, Arcane Strike, Heroes 2, I keep forgetting its name. So there are plenty of ways to buff attack speed. So I realistically don't see much of an issue. On to the other stats, the Dakra Prime has double the Plasma Sword's critical chance at 36%, and well, obviously 18% for the Plasma Sword. For the critical multiplier, the Plasma Sword's got a pretty average crit multiplier 2 versus the Dakra Prime's 2.4 times. They have the same status chance, so there's no bias there. Now, here's where I was genuinely surprised. I was doing some calculating. I was calculating this earlier. The overall damage of the Dakra Prime at base is 272. Pretty good, but I originally thought the Dakra Prime had similar, pretty much the same, close to the same amount of damage. Well, it was close. I was a little bit off because it's not lower, but higher. Because if you put these numbers into a calculator, this shows a total damage of 320. I was genuinely but pleasantly surprised. So, when I was doing my testing, I felt it was very close behind Dakra Prime in terms of damage output. And this is and I was testing this with both having the same build for the sake of consistency. So if I'll go over the build. So it's this is going to be what I've used for the Plasma Sword as well as Prime Fury. Plasma Sword as well as Dakra Prime. Derp. Don't roast me too much on that one. So with the Plasma Sword, I put 4-former in it originally because I just wanted to give it honest goodness go, but I feel it could get away with less. Because you won't need it. You'll probably get away with 3-former because you won't need Drifting Contact. You won't need it for Drifting Contact. The only reason I have it here is because of this Riven, which is giving me attack speed and combat duration, so I could easily drop Prime Fury and put on something like Primed Reach instead, and as well as Drifting Contact, of course. But for the sake of this test, I'm not going to use a Riven. Because I have Rivens for both, and I feel it would be unfair. Because you can't get this, it's the likelihood of any of you viewers getting the same stats as me exactly is very slim. So for the sake of testing, for the sake of this test, and for both the Plasma Sword and the Dakra Prime, they're not going to have Rivens. So onto the build, we have Drifting Contact for combat duration status chance. We have Blood Rush for scaling crit as the combo multiplier goes up. We have Condition Overload for our base damage, since 18% status chance is just enough to make that work. For attack speed, we have Berserker and Prime Fury. This is mainly needed for the Plasma Sword. The Dakra Prime doesn't need it as much, but again, for the sake of consistency, they're both having the same build without any flex, without allowing anything else in. So this is they both have the same build, but that is only for this test. You can change the setup as you will, but I felt that for consistency, again, they needed to have the same build. For our elemental, we have Viral in the form of Virulent Scourge and Vicious Frost to giving us the viral damage as well as some status chance. So because of this, using this instead of Corrosive really helps because again, high focus on Slash. And because Viral doesn't use electricity, it's basically giving Condition Overload another extra damage. So each one of these procs will give basically a base pressure point. So for since you've got 5 here, that's 5 times pressure point. So you pretty much got a good setup in terms of base damage for Condition Overload to get its highest damage output. And finally, we have Organ Shatter
for 19% critical damage, bringing it up to the general average of a melee weapon's crit damage multiplied at 3.8 times. Now, when it comes to the Dakra Prime, it's got the same build, so just for the sake of proofing, I'll bring it up. So, as you see here, exact same build, no differences, apart from just like where they're placed. And again, proof, I'm not using it. Here's my Riven, and I do use it for my normal setup, but for the sake of testing, that's not going on here. So starting off, we'll do the Dakra Prime test first, just so to see what the Plasma Sword has to go up against. So as you can see here, we've got 6 corrupted bombards. Sorry if you heard that was my phone. Shut up. So we got 6 corrupted bombards at level 165. For the Dakra Prime, this should go very easily, very well. So you see, damage ramps up very quickly for the Dakra Prime. It's like I'm getting red crits already. So Dakra Prime, I'm pretty sure none of us were surprised could handle this easily. So we'll do the test one more time for the sake of testing. So, see, it's like, ooh, I am, it's like, that is just nasty. Now, that is pretty much what the Dakra Prime can do, so now we need to see what its challenger can do. Oh, we don't really need to go over the build, whoops. So, now it's going to have a slightly slower ramp up as from a cold start in the Simulacrum. But once it gets going, you can see the damage DPS is like the gap is really, how should I say, minuscule. Like the gap is like the gap between this and the Dakra Prime is really close. It's like, and it's like there are other things I could put on here, such as I could use Weeping Wounds to further buff the status chance up, which means Condition Overload has better, gets more procs, but it's like, again, it's for the sake of consistency, and I'd easily have room for that when I put my Riven on, so in terms of that, see, it's very good damage output. Let's do one more test from a cold start. It's like, the cold start doesn't look very good. It's like, and it's mostly RNG based. Procs are pretty much RNG based, since even with all the dual sets and drifting contact, it's got just under 50% status chance. So just under 1 in every 2 hits will proc something. But since with both Prime Fury and Berserker, you've got quite a high attack speed, and since the base damage is mostly focused on slash, you can get some pretty good slash perks out of it. So, DPS-wise, the Plasma Sword, while it's close competing with the Dakra Prime, its damage is just low enough for it, because, so it can, oh, you sneaky son of a bitch. I thought I killed any. So, let's get rid of you real quick. Oh, wait, I forgot I don't have any other weapons equipped. Oh, well. I just wanted to get that over and done with, so thankfully it didn't. Thankfully, my point still stands. The Plasma Sword has it's quick to ramp up, but not as quick as Dakra Prime, so in terms of its damage aspect, I'm going to have to say that sadly the Plasma Sword only gets 1 point in this case, versus the Dakra Prime getting 2. So 2 points versus 1. Now, in terms of the build aspect, the build flexibility is pretty low there, because the plasma is like, in terms of, for fuck's sakes, phone. Jeez, that vibrating thing is really loud. A lot of the mods you need is pretty hard to get a hold of. It was like Prime Fury alone, you have to wait to 200 days to get. If I've got this right. Yeah, Prime Fury was the first Prime mod you could get out of the login reward system, so you have to wait at least 200 days with that. when it comes to some other mods, like you can get some of these fairly well, though Condition Overload is pretty hard to get a hold of with its low drop rate. Blood Rush you could get from like Lewis Spy or the Acolytes if they come back. Drifting Contact, mid-tier Nightmare, Berserker from Corrupted Ancients. The like Virulent Scourge, the Toxin dual stats in general come from Corrupted Void. Vicious Frost is from Spy missions, and Organ Shatter is just a bog standard mod. I pick up quite a few of these just lying around in general missions, so I can't even remember what mob type drops these. There's just been so many drops of this, it's kind of not really funny. So, Plasma Sword currently is sitting with... So, like, in terms of build flexibility, because of the fact that you need, without any Riven or something like that to help boost it, because I'm not factoring things like Arcanes. So, Arcanes or abilities are out. So, by itself, because the Plasma Sword really needs both Berserker and Prime Fury to be fairly good in the attack speed, it's not exactly very build flexible. So, Plasma Sword again gets 1 point, and the Dakra Prime gets 2. So, overall scoring right now is the Dakra Prime is sitting at 4, with the Plasma Sword sitting at 2. Okay, as we load into the second, into a mission, let's go over the second phase of the testing. Well, not the testing, the verses. Now, this one is going to cover accessibility. So, in terms of accessibility, we got two things going for it. Wow, Arbiters? Really? I just loaded in. Jeez. Where are they? Now, we got two things to go in terms of build aspect to cover, at least. Because the things I want to focus on are if a weapon can be accessed at based on its depending on its mastery lock, or if a weapon essentially it's being judged by its mastery lock and what is needed to craft it, and the probability of getting said materials, be it like components for prime weapons or general resources for weapons, for normal weapons I should say. So in terms of the Dakra Prime, it's currently not looking good here because it's got a mastery rank lock of 10, so you can't get it very early on, so it loses points in that respect, and it's also lacking in the accessibility department because since it's a prime that's not like in the same vein as something like Orthos Prime, Fang Prime, which as far as I'm aware will never get vaulted. It's again, the fact that it is also vaulted, it loses points in accessibility. So, Dakra Prime currently is losing in this. So, in terms of just the accessibility alone, because since Dakra Prime's vaulted, but the Plasma Sword you can get easily because it's available from Nightwave. So, it's not available as the blueprint isn't available from the tiers, otherwise that'd be a pretty lame reward. Because it's something you could get pretty easily. It's all you really realistically have to do is just upgrade it, go up a few tiers, get some Nightwave credits, and just pretty much wait till the blueprint is in the offerings, which as far as I remember refreshes daily. So, in that respect, the Plasma Sword wins in terms of the acquiring of the blueprint, acquiring of the weapon. It wins. So the Plasma Sword here wins 2 points versus Dakra Prime only getting 1 in this case. So as it stands, Dakra Prime sitting at 5 with the Plasma Sword sitting at 4. So on to the acquisition of the of acquisition of the materials and components. With the plasma sword, this is where it's going to do very well, because going over it is like it doesn't have the same restrictions as a vaulted prime, so that's already getting points there. So with the manufacturing requirements, you're looking at a very steep early on investment of 20,000 credits. But if you're somewhere in the same vein as me, you've got your hands on millions of credits from doing things like the index, or more if the raids were still a thing. Fuck, I missed the raids. But yeah, so 20,000 credits, 1 Orokin cell, 500 ferrite, 450 salvage, and 50 polymer bundles. Fairly cheap. You can easily get those kind of materials in maybe an hour or two at max, depending on your RNG. Because they're kind of the drops are kind of scattered, because the earliest you can get Orokin cells from is on Ceres, and that's the rare resource for Ceres, Saturn, the Orokin Derelict. So earliest you can get the Orokin cells is Ceres, which is kind of fitting considering that that's pretty much where you would be when you get to Mastery Rank 4. Again, could be wrong, you could get there earlier, but that's generally a good average place to go. And it's got a fairly cheap rush time of 25 platinum. You can get, and it's like pretty average craft time of 12 hours. So in terms of acquiring the materials, you're pretty much good there. So Dakra Prime is you kind of struggle with, because you have to wait for an unvaulting to happen, which brings back Dakra Prime, but as well as Mag Prime and the Boar Prime. And you also have to get said relics, and then you open said relics with a chance of getting the parts, which is really not too much in your favor, because you got the handle, which is a common drop from. Oh, come on! Did I just let's see. So there are 4 relics for which you can acquire. The handle, which is being the Lith M2, followed up by the Miso B1. Get back here. Sorry, let me. Damn it. But anyways, the relics for the handle are the Lith M2, the Miso B1, and M1. Again, if I put those categories together, they're pretty much from the same tier of relic. And the final relic for the handle is the Neo N9, and they're all common drops. For the blade, you're looking at uncommon and rare drops, being the uncommons being from the Neo B3 and the Axie S4, and the rare drop from the Neo D1, which I doubt very few people have these days, because I remember that relic from way back when Spectres of the Rail released. Woo-wee, that relic is old. Speaking of, just for a dumb curiosity, for anyone who gets this far in the video and is genuinely interested, and not genuinely interested, but got this far, I got a quick question for you. Just for dumb curiosity, in the comments, if you can remember when the relics came out, what is the oldest relic you still have in your inventory to this day? And I mean the oldest is in, when did that relic come out? Because, as I said, the Neo D1 is one of the, if not, among the oldest relics in the game. It was the first few relics that appeared immediately as Spectres of the Rail released. Way back in 2016. So, yeah, if you still have, you pretty much, It's like, I'm still genuinely curious if you still have relics from way back then, because I have tons of relics that have relics for the old relics for Volban Prime, for example. It's like, he had recently got unvaulted and is still unvaulted as of the time of this recording. So, yeah, the fact that I still have like pieces of like relics for the old Volban, like for Volban Prime, even before he got vaulted, that's still saying I've got some pretty old relics in here. So when it comes to Dakra Prime, but anyways, got way off topic. The final component you need for the Dakra Prime being the blueprint, which is dropped from the Lith M1, the Miso B3, and the Axie R1. So they're all uncommon drops, so pretty average, but because you have to wait for an unvaulting, which happens every 3 months, you can only have a chance that you can only get an unvaulting. You have to wait until D eventually unvault the relic. Unvault the parts, so there's that, or you can either buy them from the market for platinum, or if you have the relics, you just straight up grind for them right that way. So Dakra Prime for this segment gets 1 point versus the Plasma Sword getting once again 2 points. So final scoring from after phase 2, you've got this Dakra Prime at 6, and the Plasma Swords also at 6. So, as a result, both weapons are tied, but that doesn't mean that either. It's like each one has their merits. It's like they have their flaws and they have their perks. It's like for the Dakra Prime, it's very hard to get a hold of, whereas the Plasma Sword is very easy to get a hold of, but it has a slightly slower ramp up time, which can easily be made up for using things like Rivens, or Warframe abilities. Like if you don't like the damage output, you can just buff it using things like Nova's Molecular Prime, or if you don't like its attack speed, you could buff it using Valkyrie's Warcry, Harris 2, Arcane Strike. So, in terms of flexibility for what can be used to help it, it's both weapons benefit from said abilities, so not really any bias there. So, overall, Dakra Prime and Plasma Sword being tied doesn't mean that once, even if the Dakra Prime, if both weapons were to just be compared on damage alone, without a doubt, the Dakra Prime would have just won not easily, because you saw how the Plasma Sword was handling the same entity types, same build, it was doing very well for what it was given. It's like there could easily have been thrown in other mods thrown in. Again, if with my Riven, I could have thrown on Primed Reach or Weeping Wounds to further increase the status chance, but I felt like I'd rather have range. So, when it comes to Plasma Sword, it does have the similar levels of damage as the Dakra Prime, but if you just want simplicity, if you have the Dakra Prime, it doesn't really matter as such, because since it's got just slightly better damage output, you'd rather go Dakra Prime. Again, it's like meta won't disappear. But I'd like to see more non-meta weapons get at least some time in the spotlight. So it's like, I really gotta say, I'm not sure if not a lot of people saw where I did that, but if you've watched this and you watch all this way and you are a subscriber, I thank you so much, because I didn't expect to get to 20 subscribers as fast as I did. I thought it was just going to be like a over time thing where it would take months or possibly years before I would get to even 10 subscribers. But getting to 20, and as at the time of this video, I'm at 22 subscribers, and it's going to be counting because I'm going to be continuously uploading at least once a week or on special occasions. So, speaking of, before I forget, hope you have a happy new year. turn of the decade. Let's make 2020 a good one, eh? So, with that, I thank you very much for watching, and as I give bid, and much like how this enemy is going to be heading to the great beyond without taking the console with it, I bid you adieu.